Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. So thank you everybody for joining today. Again, my name is Robert Booth. I'm the Director of Process Discovery here at Accelirate. And here today we also have Adam Hanson. Thank you so much for joining and helping me out with this, Adam. If you want to just introduce yourself as to what you do for UiPath before you go ahead and get started.
Sure thing. Thanks, Robert. So happy to be here. My name is Adam Hanson. I'm a Director for Pre-Sales in the East with UiPath.
Great. So what the real purpose of today's presentation is all about RDA, and more specifically, really identifying your RDA opportunities. So as you know, obviously, as COVID has made some very large impact, a lot of people are starting to look at a couple of alternative solutions that are really within the hyperautomation toolkit, and RDA is really one of the technologies really leading that pack. So we thought it was very important to kind of, in these series of webinars, have an understanding of, well, what is RDA? And then more importantly now, how do we really identify those opportunities? So myself and then Adam will be providing some additional context really about what is RDA, how do we find the opportunities for it, and how do we really grow out this initiative? So let's go ahead and get started. So just from an introductory perspective, RDA stands for Robotic Desktop Automation. And if you see on the right there, you're going to see an umbrella, and there's a reason for that, is because a lot of people can get confused by the number of acronyms and technologies that are kind of available now. So what we try to do is simplify it. And what I basically like to say is that process automation is really the goal. That's the umbrella term. Now, the way in which you achieve process automation are those three-letter acronyms that we know and love. So your RDA, or your RPA, your IPA, your SPA all stand for different variations that represent a form of process automation. Now, the output of all of these technologies is a bot. So I just wanted to give some of that introductory context. And RDA specifically, as it relates to RPA and SPA and IPA, what makes it different is that it is installed on a single machine for one user. And it's really meant to assist the business users while they are completing a task. So instead of RPA, which runs on the back end, and it's something that is done away from the user, this is something that is really here to help the user. So almost like a virtual assistant. So a little analogy here we have at the bottom is RDA is like having a personal assistant to make your life or the business user's life easier, whereas RPA or SPA or IPA is like having additional workers to help your overall business operate smoother. So I wanted to provide that context. Adam, if you wanted to add any more to that of really what's the key differentiators between RDA and RPA, but I feel from a high level, this kind of captures at least the scope of it. So I'm not sure if you want to add anything more.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it. There's another term that I think you're going to run into that I want to include in this description is the idea of attended or unattended automation. So I don't want this to be confusing. Just like with what Robert was saying, an RDA is a personal assistant. So this is a robot that's going to be installed on your personal laptop, helping you out with your day. That's what many other people call attended automation, because there's a human and a robot kind of working hand in hand. RPA, or what other people might call unattended automation, is like an additional worker kind of sitting in the background, knocking out work, end to end with no human interaction. So I just wanted to add that little detail of that term, attended and unattended, which really corresponds to RPA and RDA. Hopefully that we'll avoid confusion later on if we throw out the terms attended and unattended.
No, that's perfect. It's a perfect segue actually into this next slide because, as we mentioned, the bot is the output of all of these platforms. But it's very important also to understand, well, what are the bot types? And you mentioned two of them just previously. So if we were to take all of the different types of bots and we simplified them, there's really three different types. So we have your attended bot, which, as Adam said, this really refers to our Robotic Desktop Automation, or RDA. They really go hand in hand. When you're thinking of RDA, you're thinking of an attended bot. Virtual assistant, digital assistant, all of these are just different names, but they're all referring to the same thing. RDA, which outputs an attended bot. So as I said, this is stored locally on a user's machine, and it's called upon, or it's basically, it interacts with the user by some type of user interaction, whether that be a keystroke or an event, such as a user dropping a file in a particular folder. The sole focus, or really one of the main focus of attended bots, is all front office tasks. So this is stuff that's being done on the user's desktop, because what we're really trying to do here, just as an assistant, a regular system would do for anybody, is really increase productivity for the users. That's the main goal of RDA from our perspective, and again, their output, which is attended bots. Now, if you're going to look at an unattended bot, it's going to have some similar characteristics, but the focus of it is different. So the unattended bot is what you really think about when you think of RPA. That's the output of your RPA tools, is an unattended bot, which resides usually on a dedicated workstation or a server, because there could be many, many different RPA bots all working on the same process. Obviously, as you scale and the complexity of it, those requirements may change. But the focus of unattended bots, or RPA in general, is back office tasks. I think everybody is pretty much aware of that by now. And really one of the main motivators of RPA and unattended bots is to reduce costs by the business, which those could be direct costs, whether those be FTE savings, overtime, anything like that, or indirect costs, software usage, overhead, as well as increase of capacity. So if we're able to take off the load of what certain users have to do, again, from a back-end perspective, that is a very common goal of unattended bots or RPA. And then you have your last, which is your hybrid. And your hybrid is very simple. It is essentially a mix between attended and unattended bots. So these can be configured in many different ways, but usually how it most commonly works is that you would have an attended bot, again, which is stored on the user's local machine, that kicks off an unattended bot later on in a downstream process. So the point of this is that it can focus on both front and back office tasks. So really one of the main goals of your hybrid bots, whenever you hear that term, because there could be many different variations of how people refer to a hybrid bot, but really the main focus of a hybrid bot is to bridge the gap between how the business interacts with the bots and vice versa. So those can be done through an attended and unattended bot. Those are referred to as a hybrid bot. So I felt that was a perfect segue. I'm not sure if there's more you wanted to add to that, but we felt this was a simplified way of looking at what are the three bot types, which again are the output of all of these RDA and RPA tools. For our intents and purposes, attended bots is what we are going to be focusing on, because that is the focus of RDA. So I'm not sure, Adam, if there's more you would want to add to that. Didn't want to simplify it too much, but wanted to give that that context.
No, I think this is great. The only thing I might add is in the attended side, there is a large focus on increasing productivity for each user, right? And that's one of the core things that creates the business case. But there's another perspective I like to suggest we look at it. In many organizations, there are people who are doing a lot of really tedious, monotonous work that is not the best use of their time. It's not the things people go to work, wake up and are excited to do. So another way of thinking out of it isn't just, let's maximize a person's productivity. It's we want to offload the work that people don't like doing to a robot. That's what robots are good at: repetitive, tedious, rule-based, tasks, high volume, with a lot of accuracy. So focusing on those types of things is another great way to look at attended automation. And then, as you, I think, nailed, Robert, that hybrid is, we want to get as much of that as possible away from the humans and have just robots doing it. And hybrid lets us kind of do a handoff between attended automation and unattended.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Thank you. Okay, so now that we kind of have that understood, one thing I wanted to get into, because I think it's very important, specifically with kind of what UiPath, I feel how they're approaching it. I think it's a great way of looking at it. And it's really this concept of the citizen developer. So we've describes, well, what is RDA? What does it stand for? How does it correlate with those other three-letter acronyms we're so used to, like RPA and whatnot? What are the main bot types? And again, attended bots is the main one that we are going to be looking at because RDA is the focus of this. But the citizen developer is a concept I feel that it's important also to mention. So when we look at a citizen developer, what that really means, if you were to look at enabling all of the users in your business, it's really almost like a pyramid. So you have at the top there your RDA developers. Now, what the purpose of this is going to be almost similar to having dedicated RPA developers. These are individuals that are able to build these robust attended automations that are then run by business users, whether those be admins or regular business users, that are working on a particular process. These are the ones that are going to be basically solely focused on creating automation. So in terms of skills, they're going to have your standard programming skills. So understanding concepts such as what variables, parameters, what types there are, such as strings, floats, data tables, and exception handling are all going to be pretty fundamental skills that a dedicated RDA developer would need to have. But what we also want to focus on is the citizen developer. So what the citizen developer basically means is that they are not dedicated solely to creating automations, but we are enabling them to still be able to build these RDA bots or these attended automations for themselves and any immediate team members, while also utilizing any automations that have been created by RDA developers, or that top of the pyramid. And this is the concept behind this, is that your citizen developer is like your super SME. It's somebody that has a very, very deep knowledge and understanding of how the business operates, but they also, in terms of skills, they have a very logical way of thinking. They have a certain proficiency in certain applications, such as Excel. They're going to be able to pick up a lot of these concepts that are going to allow them to create these attended automations. So your RDA developers at the top of the pyramid, those are the ones that are going to be solely focusing on creating these attended bots, these attended automations utilizing RDA. Whereas you have your citizen developers, these are going to be people in the business that are not solely dedicated for RDA, but because they have a strong process knowledge understanding, they have a logical way of looking at things, they have proficiencies in certain fundamental applications such as Excel and whatnot, they are also going to be able to be utilized to create these automations that are going to take away these tedious tasks that Adam was mentioning before. And who's going to be benefiting from all of this is the bottom of the pyramid. This is your automation users. So this could be a mixture, right? Your RDA developer could also be an automation user, same thing with a citizen developer. But the point is that the automation users are really the ones running these attended automations. So these are the ones that are built by others, whether they be your RDA or your citizen developers. They're the one running these automations and actually receiving the benefits of these bots. So these are going to be your standard business experts that understand how these process flows, and they may have some varying degrees of programming aptitude, right? You don't have to be a software engineer to kind of understand, well, what does a variable mean or what's an exception mean? But what they're not going to be doing is they're not going to be focusing on development. They're really going to be running and utilizing these bots. So the concept of the citizen developer, which really is that middle ground, you want to get, as your COE grows, your organization grows, you want to enable as many citizen developers as possible, because you're going to reap the benefit of them being able to operate in the business as they normally do. But because they have so much context of how the business operates, they're going to be the ones that really assist in finding those opportunities or those tedious tasks that can be automated, as well as they're able to automate them themselves and share those with the other users in the business, so they are also able to reap those benefits. So Adam, I'm not sure if there's more you wanted to add to that, because I know there's a lot we could definitely talk about on this concept, but I wanted to kind of just show how this relates between your standard RDA developer and your user. That citizen developer is a key fundamental concept that I think is going to be really adopted more and more as we go on.
Yeah, this is very near and dear to my heart because there's a vision at UiPath called Robot for Every Person. We really believe and are striving to make automation something that benefits everyone, not just the organization by improving how work is done, but also literally making people's lives better. And this kind of pyramid shows how we can apply automation or robots for everybody. So you take 100 people in an organization, maybe one or two of them are developer types. And we have, that's kind of where we started, was really helping these developers create automations. We've now expanded to Studio X, which enables, let's say, 10 out of those 100 are Excel power users, those kind of people who are going to go above and beyond the process and even create micro automations or create solutions along the way at the ground level. And then everyone else, the other, 89 users are just going to be able to have a robot and run the processes that were built for them by citizen developers or RDA developers. And so this way, there's going to be robots and automation for everyone across the organization, no matter whether you're highly technical, sort of technical, or you don't want to be technical at all.
Right. I mean, I remember I've been working with UiPath since 2015-ish, and the concept of the citizen developer, though it's new in the sense of how much they were really being evangelized, right? But that was something that has been brought up before, is that if you have somebody that is able to, that understands how the business works or how it flows fundamentally, and they're able to utilize a tool that allows them to automate it without them having that software engineering background, that's where a robot for every person is really going to make an immediate and large scale effect on an organization, because they're going to be able to reap both benefits. So it's definitely something that we're excited about, and I appreciate the extra context there, Adam. So the next thing that we kind of want to talk about is, okay, well, so we have we understand what RDA is, we understand, well, what are the bot types, and we understand who are the ones that are going to actually be the main focus of creating these automations, your RDA, and then more importantly, your citizen developers. But what is it that exactly defines a particular process or a task as a good RDA use case? And as with anything, you have an opportunity assessment that you need to consider. So that's really what we're going to be going over here. Is you have your citizen developer, your super SMEs, but what is it exactly that they are looking at for them to say this is a good opportunity for RDA? So if you see here, this is going to be, actually a lot of these are going to be pretty similar to what you would see with RDA, but there's a couple of key differentiators. So when you're looking at a particular process that you believe that RDA may be able to assist with, there's going to be a couple key factors that you need to look at first before anything. One, is it highly manual and repetitive? This kind of goes back to what Adam was saying, with that we're really trying to, again, increase productivity and remove these tedious tasks away from the business and put them in the hands of these bots, so these business users can focus on truly value-added activities. Nobody likes going in and having to check this Excel file every single day just because it's a business requirement. It's not something that challenges business users. So these are the types of tasks that we want to look at first, the ones that are highly manual and repetitive, the ones that you just have to do every day. Those are a really good start, your use case where you can start at, because those are going to be those types of activities that business users do not like to do. So if they are highly manual and highly repetitive, readable inputs. So what this means is that there shouldn't be, how we get the data in, it should be very straightforward and not complicated. So if you have to do any type of scanning of a file, or if you have to really do a kind of basically a lot of data cleansing for a file, these may not be your low-hanging fruit for RDA. Those may be something that we may have to explore other initiatives, as well as, are there a large amount of potential exceptions? So if you have a particular use case where there's, let's say, 100 different variations, those are going to be instances that are probably not going to be the best use case for your low-hanging fruit, because you want to focus on those tasks where you're able to get a lot of value rather quickly. So you don't want to have a very large amount of variations with these processes. As well, is it on a task level scope? So this is another big differentiator between an RPA assessment and an RDA assessment. RPA, you're really looking to, and the fundamental goal is end-to-end process, right? And you get to that end-to-end state by utilizing normally some type of unattended or hybrid approach. Whereas RDA, it's again all front office, so it's really more on a task level basis. And those are, and realistically, those are the things that really that bother a user, is when they have to do these tasks that maybe only take them 1, 2, 3 minutes, but it's something that they have to do multiple times throughout the day. Those are going to be the very, very big opportunities for you to be able to provide quick and instant lift and capacity to the business users, but also it gives them a sense of relief of them not having to do these manual and repetitive tasks. So let's go start from there. So if none of those are really met, then you may want to explore other process improvement initiatives, whether that be just re-engineering the how the process may operate, or looking for other tools in the hyperautomation toolkit. But if all of those factors are met, we're going to look to see can the processing method be changed. And this is again all looking at when we're trying to implement RDA, it's something that we want it to be done quickly. Right? This is something we want to be done in a couple of weeks, not in a couple of months. So if the processing or the way that you process these tasks, if they can be changed, if they can be fundamentally changed or they can be easily changed, those are not going to be the best use cases, again, for your low-hanging fruit. As well, high volume, right? You want something that affects a lot of business users, because if I can save you 1 or 2 minutes from this business user, but every business user has to do this task, then I'm getting that full scope of benefits by being able to automate this one task. And then lastly, are there system changes required? So depending on what applications you're utilizing or what this bot is going to be interacting with, you want to make sure that the systems that are there are pretty foundational in nature, and that there's not going to be any major fundamental changes. The same way you would approach it with an RPA project, RDA is going to be the same concept. But again, because it's on that front office or on that desktop, it's going to be much more important for you to ensure that there is not going to be any major fundamental system changes. So all of these factors can be utilized for you to make your RDA opportunity assessment. And if these are all met, these are all good use cases for RDA. There's definitely a lot more I'm sure we can go into in this. Adam, I'm not sure if there's more you would want to add that I may have missed, but I felt that these were kind of the key points here when you're doing an assessment for RDA.
I think that's great. We don't want to open the floodgates too much given time, so I think that's plenty for now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then let's go to the last 2 slides here, and I know it's 12:25, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because I want to make sure we get some questions in. But in terms of common use cases, so at the top here, you'll see I put industry profile. And the reason I did this is because regardless of whether you're in BFSI, oil and gas, you're in software, manufacturing, insurance, the way that your organization is structured is obviously going to change drastically between what industries you're in. However, you will find that every major industry or every major organization within those industries, they will have these key fundamental departments. So at least you can say, well, where can I start? These five areas are going to be found in every major enterprise. And there's going to be RDA use cases for each of these. So finance and accounting, IT, human resources, customer service, and contact center and legal, regardless of whether you're in BFSI, oil and energy, manufacturing, you're going to have these types of departments. They may be referred to differently, but you will have these departments. And within each of these, there's going to be a lot of potential use cases for RDA. So I'm going to take the finance and accounting department and some very good use cases for these. Now, if you see on the top there, these are going to be how they're referred to may depend on the industry that you're in. You may call it source to pay, procure to pay. You may call it different things, but these are going to be 5 main areas that every finance and accounting department will have. And what are some key use cases for each of these under their respective tranches? So under source to pay, again, managing inventory, measuring performance, generating reports, all of these are use cases that could be done on the front end while they're on the businesses, on the user's desktop, and it's quickly providing that value because they are not having to do these individual tasks. And you'll see that these are really on that task level basis. These are not end-to-end processes because these make up activities that make up the task of the process that you would approach with RPA, or in this instance, RDA. So I know that you probably have a lot of context in terms of what you've seen, Adam, in terms of use cases of RDA. So I'm going to pass that off to you just for this last slide. But I just wanted to showcase how, regardless of what industry you're in, you will have these common departments within them, and there will be these use cases for these low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I mean, for everyone in the audience, if you have something in mind, that's what my hope is for this brief period of time that we're talking about, is to think of what are the things you're doing or you know are happening in your organization, whether you're in any of these departments or that kind of fit the criteria. You think people don't love doing it, or it's a big time consumption, or very highly repetitive or tedious, and start capturing. Well, we can offer tons of information around where we've had success in other organizations, whether it's broken down by vertical or by kind of persona in the organization. But I want you to kind of connect to where could this be applicable to you? You know, am I spending tons of time, fishing through emails or dealing with Excel? Or I know we've got these 2 applications that have been in the organization for 10 years and they're awful, but we have to use them. Think of things like that and those kind of use cases and write them down. We're happy to spend more time later on, either with UiPath or Accelirate or both of us together, kind of diving into that. So this is, I think, a great time to, rather than me just talk about a million use cases, let's try to turn it back and connect to the audience and see if you guys have things that fit the bill like what we've described so far today.
Yeah, great point. Megan, I know that you may have some questions here that we have in the chat, but because we have about 2 to 3 minutes left, let's just turn this over to the audience, see if we have any questions that we can quickly address. Megan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, so the first question is, how do you implement self-service?
So there's a little cut off there, but Adam, I'm not sure if you heard, but it's basically, how do you implement self-service?
So this could mean a few different things. Do you mean like internal support, or do you mean a client wants to, let's say a client is calling you or a customer is calling you and is are you talking about self-service in that client, going through a chat bot or a web portal and serving themselves? Or do you mean like an internal support structure? Or do you mean RPA, like a COE? How do you implement a support structure for service inside the organization for automation? I just want to clarify, what do you mean by self-service here?
They would like to know self-service for RDA.
So there's many different ways that organizations have implemented this, if I understand the question correctly. Some are through a partner, where the partner is a key part of that, what we call a COE, or Center of Excellence. It's pretty much the model where, an idea of automation, pipeline generation, or just ideation goes all the way through implementation, right? So, in UiPath, we have a whole platform where you can use Automation Hub to capture ideas for RDA and then track that idea all the way through its implementation, whether that's done through a partner, through an internal development team. There's many different ways to lay this out and to have that kind of governance and model inside your organization. But I kind of see 2 general paths. One is a crowdsourced method, where everyone can participate and send ideas and say, hey, this part of my job stinks, right? Or they can automate it themselves with Studio X. Or there is more of the top-down driven method, where you have strategic initiatives from the executive level saying, hey, we need to cut costs in our call center. How can we do that? And so these are 2 very different ways to approach the same end goal. How do we create these high-value automations to help everyone out? And I would say, like I said, whether it's through an internal group, like a COE, or if it's aligned with a partner as well, there's many different ways that we can help decide for your organization what's the best way to implement this kind of service model.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, and definitely there's definitely probably multiple ways in which you can definitely do it. It is about 12:32 now, so I apologize we weren't able to get to more questions. But if you see here on the screen, you could definitely reach out to myself or to Adam, who's really helping lead the charge over at UiPath on RDA. I really appreciate everybody's time that was able to join. Adam, thank you so much for walking us through this and really helping us out. And I really look forward to the end of this year and the next year as well, where RDA and this citizen developer starts to really be evangelized across the industry, and these organizations start to really reap these benefits on a much wider scale. So I really appreciate your time. Please reach out to either of us if you guys have any additional questions. And if not, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Take care.